Hello! Okay, for those who are returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Tron Ares, this time directed by Joachim Ronin, and I've really been looking forward to this movie. I'm a big fan of the original movie that was released back in 1982. I grew up admiring that movie, and I was really impressed with Tron Legacy, the sequel from 2010. I've never seen the TV show, by the way, but I've heard some positive things about the TV show, but never got around to watching it. But yeah, Tron Ares, starring Jared Leto, with music composed by Nine Inch Nails, which got me really excited because I am a massive fan of Nine Inch Nails, and I was really excited to see what they were going to cook up here for the third movie within the Tron franchise. So Tron Ares is set some years after the events of Tron Legacy, and it follows the escalating rivalry between tech companies Encom and Diligence Systems, both racing to harness a permanence code long hidden in a remote site built by Kevin Flynn. Dillinger's grandson, Julian, introduces Ares as the perfect operative for his ambitions, but as Ares fulfills his orders, he begins to develop a self-awareness, questioning his purpose and the morality of his mission. So, I'm going to jump straight into the positives. I'm gonna start off with talking about the aspects of this experience that I found myself really admiring, and that is the visuals. This movie for me was visually stunning. It was mesmerizing to witness the world of Tron, the grid, just come to life within the frame, with the beautiful blend of practical effects and CGI, and then elevated by its gorgeous thumping score by Nine Inch Nails, which just sucks you into this world. It just immerses you into the world of the grid in a way that I just found really compelling and, just like I said, mesmerizing to witness. Visually and sonically, this movie was a treat. It took me back to being a kid again and just being in awe at what is being brought to life here, you know, technically within the frame. It truly was just one of those experiences that reminded me of being a kid again, you know, watching that original movie for the first time. Just like with Star Wars, when you see Star Wars for the first time and you see that Star Destroyer coming over the camera, you know, it was a very similar experience from a technical perspective, and it was great to see filmmakers really leaning more into practical effects, like having our characters, having our actors actually on a set that has been built. The grid has never felt so tangible before. You know, I was able to sort of really believe that these characters existed within this world, you know, they're inside this system, this program, and this is all due to how this world was brought to life through that beautiful blend of practical and CGI. I found it to be very impressive with how heavy they did lean sort of into the practical effects. Like, they could have easily have just gone, you know, they could have easily have just blue screened everything, and, you know, a blue screen everywhere. But they didn't. You know, there was actually an effort here to have our characters on practical sets, and yes, it is, as a result, a much more immersive experience. And so, like I said, visually and sonically, this movie for me was mesmerizing and compelling. And I feel like the score by Nine Inch Nails does a beautiful job at conveying the themes, the deeper themes that they are attempting to explore you within its story. I watched the movie on Friday night in IMAX. I highly recommend you watch this in IMAX, but I also got the score on vinyl. The score actually was released before the movie, and it's been many years since that has happened, but I just had to stick it on last night and listen to the score again while I was writing my notes for this review, because it is great. It's a great score that really does heighten or elevate the story in which they are attempting to tell you. So there are aspects of this experience, there are elements of this movie that I just found myself admiring. Unfortunately, it fails to really reach its full potential in what it is that I felt like they were attempting you with its story and its themes. You know, thematically and narratively, this movie was very sloppy. The potential is there, and you see glimpses of it throughout, wherever it be a certain moment with Jared Leto's character, Ares, where he's kind of really sort of reflecting and thinking about his purpose and meaning and all of that, you know, really kind of deep human themes, or the gorgeous score by Nine Inch Nails, which does a really effective job at sort of really digging in and sort of conveying the themes in which they are exploring within the story. But unfortunately, as one whole experience, it just doesn't quite fully come together. It's not really consistent at sort of really exploring sort of those ideas with its characters, with, you know, artificial intelligence, having this program that is built for one purpose, but then starting to sort of gain this consciousness. You know, there is so much potential here to have created something more than just a visually stunning experience, something a lot deeper, a lot edgier. And even though I feel like the attempt is there, it definitely feels like an attempt here at sort of creating something a little edgier and deeper and darker within the world of Tron, but it also at the same time feels very restrained, and it's like they're tiptoeing really around the themes in which they are exploring. It's very surface level, and so even though I admired this experience when it came to the music and the visuals, it's the story that just really let this experience down. And it's, you know, it's how that story was structured and how it sort of just unfolded. It kind of lacked the substance and depth that I wanted, especially considering the themes that I felt like they were kind of really touching on you and exploring with its characters. Like I said, you know, there's some really nice moments here, and moments that kind of really give us an insight into what this film could have been. And the score, again, you know, going back to the score, it does a better job than the writing in actually bringing those themes to life. I feel like the score was much more effective than the actual writing here. And, you know, along with the visuals and the score, I also found Jared Leto's performance to be quite mesmerising here. Jared Leto as Ares was great. He was another one of the highlights for me, but also showed sort of the potential of this movie, of what this movie could have been. And maybe describing Jared Leto's performance as mesmerising is the wrong word. What the performance had was this emotional hook to it. Like, there was a depth there that you could sort of sense what the character was going through internally, just through how Jared Leto would bring the character to life. Like, it is quite a subdued performance, but it really worked, I felt, for what they were attempting to do, or with the story in which they were attempting to tell you with the character of Ares. And I just felt like through the performance, I just felt like Jared Leto did a wonderful job really at conveying what this character was going through and that kind of journey in which the character was going through the performance, where the writing for me really failed at. Jared Leto is trying his hardest here with the material that he's got. I just felt like Jared Leto does a wonderful job at conveying the transformation of this character as he evolves, and along with the visuals and the score, I just found his performance to be quite mesmerising. Like, I was not expecting to come out of this movie admiring what Jared Leto did with his character as much as I was, but he is, along with the score and the visuals, one of the highlights of this experience. But it's also frustrating because you see, or you get a glimpse into what I felt like this movie could have been. And tonally, it's also just a little clunky. Like, it kind of felt, and I could be wrong here, but this is just my own perception, but it did feel like that maybe the original intentions behind this film, behind this experience, was for it to be darker edgier, a little bit more bold with what it is that they're exploring with its themes. Something that has a bit more of an emotional punch to it. There are signs of that, but then it's kind of like they just sort of decide that they're going to make something perhaps a little bit more, I don't know, Michael Bay-esque, you could say. Like, you know, there are side characters in this movie where they're obviously there for, you know, comic relief, and it just didn't work. Like, those sort of moments that we do get of humour throughout this film really didn't work for me. They felt more sort of out of place and random, and there was a bit of a Michael Bay sort of vibe to sort of those side characters and the humour. Like, it reminded me at times of a Michael Bay movie. You know, I'm not saying, you know, I hate every Michael Bay film, but it kind of had that very kind of generic sort of Michael Bay vibe to it, and it's almost like they were just playing it a little bit too safe. And as a result, what we do get here, when it comes to its story and its themes, it's just very sloppy. And it just lacks a depth to it where I was able to sort of really get emotionally involved within the story, because I feel like there is an attempt there at that, but I just couldn't get invested into any of the characters other than Ares. And, you know, all these other characters that sort of play a part within the story, there was just nothing there for me to really care about them. And it as an overall experience, even though I admired many elements of it, as a whole, it kind of just felt very shallow and soulless. It ended up being a very generic experience with glimpses of potential. But, you know, negatives aside, I still had fun with this movie. Like, I didn't come out of it hating it. You know, I came out very kind of lukewarm. Like, it was okay. And, you know, I enjoyed being sort of transported within the world of the Grid. You know, I just think they did such a wonderful job from a technical perspective in bringing this world to life. And, you know, being captivated not just by the visuals and the score, but also by the performance of Jared Leto as his program, and captivated by the ideas within it. You know, that's what kind of really kept me locked in. And, you know, I did have fun with it. I did enjoy it, but it was also disappointing because of what this could have been, and there were signs of that, and it just kind of tonally, it just didn't really quite work for me. You know, it did feel odd when we did have those odd moments of comic relief and, you know, humour. You know, like I said, it kind of reminded me at times of a Michael Bay Transformers movie due to certain moments and sort of writing when it came to certain characters and side characters. But I still had fun with this movie because of how the world was brought to life. I found myself admiring the film, the experience from that perspective, you know, just admiring the fact that they chose to build sets, you know, where they could have easily have just relied on blue screen. I just, you know, that was something that I found myself really admiring about the experience. And there were things in it, there were certain moments in the movie that kind of really made me smile, because I was just amazed by how they were bringing certain moments to life, you know, and along with that score, that thumping score, it just sucked me into this world. So it's a very conflicting experience. This was a very frustrating experience, because there was a lot that I admired about Tron Ares, but without that story, you know, without that kind of consistent, solid story that kind of really explores its themes in a way that is satisfying, it kind of just really didn't land the punch that I was hoping for. It didn't really have the impact that I was hoping for. It did feel quite soulless and shallow. It was narratively very sloppy, but it's also a movie that reminded me why I fell in love with cinema. You know, and that is because, you know, it did. I felt like a kid again, you know, just sort of looking at the screen and going, wow, like, this looks amazing. You know, there was just like no sort of attempt at kind of really digging deeper and sort of really sort of bringing to life the motivations behind a lot of our characters within this movie. Like, Gillian Anderson is completely wasted here. And just, yeah, her role within the story just kind of felt very sort of tacked on, like kind of very last minute. And we just never really get a true understanding of the kind of the deeper motivations that drives everyone. That, we get glimpses of it. We get kind of like a basic understanding of these motivations, but it's never really kind of consistent to create this kind of one complete satisfying story with these characters within the story. And so it all just ends up feeling, narratively, tonally, quite sloppy in its execution. But, like I said, I still had fun with this. It was still an enjoyable experience, and I would highly recommend you check it out on the biggest screen possible. I watched it in IMAX 3D. I don't even do 3D. I'm not a big fan of it, but the time worked. It was the best time for me to go and check the movie out, and I thought, let's give it a go. And you know what? It was immersive. I was having a fun time, but it was the story and certain characters' kind of involvement within this story and sort of how their sort of arcs or how their journeys sort of played out throughout the story just didn't work in the way that I felt like maybe they were intended to, due to that sloppiness, really. And, maybe it was always, the direction of this movie and what we got, maybe that was always the true intention. I don't know. It didn't feel like that. And, I can imagine now that some people are going to listen to my thoughts on this movie and go, oh, for God's sake, why can't you just have fun? Why can't you just have, a fun, enjoyable time in this science fiction world? Not everything has to be intense, deep, and, dramatic and all of that. Yes, I get that. But there were signs, there were glimpses into what this could have been when it came to the movie's themes with what they were exploring with these characters. There was a compelling story here somewhere, and you're getting sort of glimpses of it, but it never really truly comes together for me. Like, you could still create a deep experience, but also have something, but also have it remain incredibly fun and enjoyable. In some ways, I felt like it was also a little bit too focused on setting up a sequel. Don't get me wrong, there's a mid-credits scene with a certain character, and I was fucking beaming like a Cheshire cat. Like, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. At the same time, it was like, I came out of it feeling, yeah, it was okay. Like, there was a lot that I loved, there was a lot that I liked about it, but as a whole, it kind of didn't really land the punch that I was hoping that it would. So yeah, they are my thoughts on Tron Ares, and I will be giving Tron Ares my thoughts on Tron Ares. But what did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? And please let me know in the comments below, and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next movie review will be for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I'm catching an advanced showing of that. I'm really looking forward to checking it out on the big screen. I really didn't want to just watch it for the first time on Netflix. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to checking that out on a big screen, and that will be my next movie review. And just another big thank you to everyone that has supported the channel, whatever it be, liking, commenting, subscribing. It means the world to me. It will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow just some random Welsh geek ramble on about film and TV. And so, yeah, just a big thank you to all of those that have joined me on this journey so far. There is so much that I want to do with the channel, that I plan for the channel. and I can't do that without your support. So yeah, that's it from me for now. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.